What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, something could be standing right behind you? I mean it. Turn around. Check. I will wait. Did you look? Good. Because what if that shadow you see from the corner of your eye is not just your imagination? What if that creaking sound you just heard was not the house settling? What if every single story your grandmother whispered to you in the dark, every tale she used to keep you in line, was not just a story at all? What if they were warnings? You see, every culture on Earth has them. These things, these entities that live in the space between reality and nightmare. They have been with us since the beginning of time, passed down through generations like a terrible inheritance. Your ancestors knew their names. They feared them. They respected them. But we, in our modern world, we have forgotten. Tonight, we are going to remember. We are diving deep into the darkest corners of human folklore. From the misty riverbanks of Mexico, where mothers still warn their children not to wander alone, to the foggy streets of Serbia, where dancing can be deadly, from ancient Japanese temples where monks once prayed for protection, to your own bathroom mirror that reflects more than just your face. These are not just campfire stories. These are not urban legends created to entertain us. These are entities that have terrorized humanity for centuries, creatures that have left their mark on our collective memory, burned into our DNA through generations of fear. And here's the thing that will keep you awake tonight. Some of them never left. They are still out there, waiting, watching, hunting. Every single one of these creatures was born from real human fear, real human encounters, real human terror. And they have survived every attempt to explain them away, every effort to dismiss them as superstition, every generation that thought they knew better. So before we begin, I need you to understand something. Once you hear these names, once you learn their stories, once you know what signs to look for, there is no going back. They will know that you know, and that changes everything. So here's what I want you to do right now. Turn off the lights, all of them. Lock your doors. Check your windows. Make sure you are truly alone, because what you are about to hear needs to stay between us. And pray, really pray, that what you are about to learn remains just knowledge. Because the moment you start seeing the signs, the moment you start hearing the sounds, the moment you realize that one of them has found you, it will be too late. Are you ready? Are you sure? Because once we start, there is no stopping until the end. Let us begin. You remember that woman you saw crying by the river? It was not your imagination. Meet La Llorona, which means the weeping woman in Mexican folklore. But this is not just some ghost story your grandmother told you to keep you inside after dark. This is a legend that has haunted Latin America for over 500 years, and encounters are still happening today. The story begins with Maria, a beautiful young woman living in colonial Mexico. She had everything she could want. Stunning looks that made men stop in the streets, a wealthy lover who promised her the world, and eventually, 2 beautiful children. But here is where the story gets dark, because her lover was married to someone else. And when his family found out about Maria and the children, they gave him an ultimatum. Choose your real family or lose everything. He chose his real family. Maria was heartbroken, but more than that, she was enraged. She had given up everything for this man. Her reputation, her future, her entire life. And now she was left with nothing but 2 children who reminded her every day of her betrayal and abandonment. Some versions say she was drunk when it happened. Others say she was completely sober and calculated. But they all agree on what happened next. She took her children to the river. Depending on who tells the story, she drowned her children because of anger, sadness, or jealousy. Some say she wanted to hurt her lover by destroying the only thing that connected them. Others say she thought if she got rid of the children, he would come back to her. And in the darkest versions, she simply could not bear to look at their faces anymore because they looked too much like him. Either way, she held them under the water until they stopped struggling. But immediately after, the reality of what she had done hit her. She had killed her own children, her babies, the only pure things in her life. The guilt and horror overwhelmed her completely, and she threw herself into the same river, drowning in the same waters where she had murdered her own flesh and blood. Now here is where it gets really terrifying. When Maria died and showed up at the gates of heaven, God asked her the one question she could not answer. "Where are your children?" She said, "I do not know, my Lord." That was the biggest mistake she could have made. Because you see, mothers are supposed to protect their children. That is the most basic, fundamental rule of motherhood. And Maria had done the exact opposite. So God banned her from heaven forever. But he did not send her to hell either. Instead, he cursed her with something much worse. She would walk the earth forever, searching for her children, unable to rest, unable to find peace, until she brought them back to him. The problem is, her children are already in heaven, and she can never reach them. Now she is cursed to walk the earth forever, and she has been doing it for centuries. She walks around foggy riverbanks dressed in a flowing white gown that is always soaking wet, covered in guilt, swamp water, and the stench of death. Her face is pale and gaunt. Her eyes are hollow and red from endless crying, and her hair hangs in wet, stringy clumps around her shoulders. She screams and wails for the children she cannot find, and the sound is so heartbreaking and terrifying that people who hear it never forget it. But here is the really scary part. She will grab anyone who gets too close, especially if you are a child. See, after centuries of searching and never finding her own kids, her mind has completely snapped. She cannot tell the difference between her children and any other children anymore. So if she sees you near a river at night, especially if you are young, she might think you are one of hers. And what do you think happens when a grief-stricken, insane ghost mother finds what she thinks is her long-lost child? She is not going to let you go. She will drag you down into the water with her, drowning you just like she drowned her own children, thinking she is finally bringing her babies home. Or if you are stupid enough to investigate the sound of a woman crying by the river at night, you become her target too, because in her twisted mind, anyone near the water might know where her children are. Anyone might be keeping them from her. And I already know what you are thinking. Listen, mothers are protective under normal circumstances, but this woman drowned her kids and came back from the grave even angrier and more desperate. This is centuries of guilt, rage, and maternal instinct all twisted into one supernatural entity. Pray she does not find you, because if she does, you're going to experience the full force of an angry mother with ancient problems and no closure. In some versions, though, she is not even trying to kill you. She just mistakes you for her lost children. So now you just got adopted by force by a supernatural entity who has been searching for centuries and finally thinks she found her babies. She will take you with her, and you will never be seen again because she will never accept that you are not actually her child. Honestly, I would probably go with her willingly. No way I am going against an angry Latina mother with ancient beef and supernatural powers. I would be out there joining the search like, "Is this your son, lady? Let me help you check over here." But here is what makes La Llorona especially terrifying in modern times. She is not just stuck in colonial Mexico. She has been spotted all over Latin America, and even in the southwestern United States. Wherever there are rivers and wherever there are people of Mexican descent, there are reports of La Llorona, and with immigration and migration, her territory keeps expanding. People report hearing her crying by rivers in Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico. Always the same description: a woman in white, soaking wet, crying for her children. And children keep disappearing near those rivers. Survival chance, 0%. 10% if you have serious mother issues and she mistakes your emotional damage for being her actual child. This is the guy that makes you think twice about giving someone a high five. He is a Japanese spirit that looks like an old blind man, but something does not add up. Then he raises his hands, and you realize his eyes are not missing. They are just in the wrong place. According to the legend, Tenome was once a blind man who got attacked and left to die in a field. Really terrible stuff. As he was dying, he did not ask for help. He just wanted one good look at the people who hurt him. He said, "I wish I had eyes on my hands." And the universe said, "Okay, deal." But when the universe gave him his wish, it forgot to include good vision. His hands are still trying to see clearly. I guess he forgot to read the small print. So now he is back, not as a ghost looking for justice, but as a creature that hunts in fields and graveyards at night. He does not care who you are. He cannot tell anymore because his memory died with his face. If you are nearby, you are probably his target. And since those hand eyes came without glasses, he gave up on sight completely and hunts by smell instead. Once he finds your scent, he runs faster than you think someone with no eyeballs should be able to run. So he really takes blind anger to a whole new level. When he finds you, you can feel it in your bones. And I mean that literally, since he likes to eat your bones. Victims are left as nothing but a pile of skin, with this old man somehow eating all the bones from your body. So yeah, he definitely has a problem with bones. Survival chance, 4%. If you ever see him, just turn around and pretend you saw nothing. It is what he is doing anyway. Imagine dying because a ghost asked if she was beautiful and you did not give her enough compliments. Yeah, I could not make that up. Welcome to the nightmare that is Kuchisake-Onna, Japan's most vain and vengeful spirit, and quite possibly the most dangerous entity you could ever encounter in a dark alley. This is not just another ghost story. This is a legend that has terrorized Japan for generations, and even today, parents warn their children about her. She is so embedded in Japanese culture that there have been actual panic episodes where entire schools were closed because kids were too scared to walk home alone. The story begins in the Heian period, over 1,000 years ago, with a woman whose beauty was legendary throughout Japan. She was married to a samurai and was absolutely stunning, the kind of beauty that made people stop in the street and inspired poets. But being that beautiful in ancient Japan came with expectations that would drive anyone crazy. She was supposed to be the perfect wife, the perfect ornament to her husband's status. But she was also human, with human desires and flaws. She was beautiful, but also vain, manipulative, and unfaithful. She had multiple affairs and was not careful about hiding them. Some say she was addicted to attention, others that she was bored in her marriage. Either way, she got caught. When her samurai husband discovered her infidelity, he didn't just divorce or throw her out. This was ancient Japan, where honor was everything and shame was worse than death. His reputation was destroyed, and his rage was murderous. So he destroyed what she valued most, her beauty. He held her down and cut her mouth from ear to ear while screaming, "Who will think you are pretty now?" He mutilated her so severely that her beautiful smile became a grotesque, bloody grin stretching across her entire face. She bled to death, but not before seeing herself in a mirror and realizing her beauty was gone forever. And she must have taken that personally, because she came back from the dead with one burning obsession: make everyone answer the same question her husband had asked her. These days, she haunts the streets of Japan, particularly dark alleys, empty streets, and anywhere people walk alone at night. She appears as a woman wearing a surgical mask or a scarf covering the lower half of her face, which is not unusual in Japan. So people do not immediately realize what they are dealing with. She will approach you calmly, politely, like any normal person asking for directions. And then she will ask you one simple question: "Watashi kirai?" Which means, "Am I pretty?" Now, this seems like an easy question to answer, right? Of course you say yes. You want to be polite. You want to get out of this weird situation. And honestly, from what you can see of her face above the mask, she does appear to be attractive. When you say yes, she smiles. And then she reaches up and slowly removes her mask or scarf. Underneath is a mouth that has been cut completely across her face, from ear to ear, covered in fresh blood that never dries. Her jaw can unhinge and stretch impossibly wide, creating this horrible, gaping smile that shows far too many teeth. The wound never heals, so it is always raw, always bleeding, always horrifying. Then comes a follow-up question, asked through this mutilated mouth: "Kore demo?" which means even now. And this is where you realize you are completely screwed, because there is no right answer to this question. If you say no, which is the honest answer, because girl, you are a reanimated corpse with a face that has been split open, she becomes enraged. She pulls out a pair of scissors, a knife, or a straight razor, and she cuts your mouth to match hers. She will slice your face from ear to ear, turning you into the same grotesque creature she has become. And then she leaves you there to bleed to death, just like she did. But if you say yes, if you try to be kind and tell her she is still beautiful even with her mutilated face, she seems pleased. She thanks you politely and walks away. You think you have escaped. You think you have given the right answer. You are wrong. She follows you home. She waits. And when you are alone, when you think you are safe, she appears again and kills you anyway. Because how dare you lie to her? How dare you pretend that her destroyed face is beautiful when you know it is not? She can see the fear and revulsion in your eyes, even when you try to be polite. So yeah, you are in trouble either way. There is no right answer because the question itself is a trap designed by centuries of rage and vanity. But there are ways to escape Kuchisake-Onna, though they require quick thinking and a willingness to be absolutely brutal in your honesty. The most effective method that people have discovered is to completely subvert her expectations. Instead of answering her question with yes or no, you say something that confuses her. Tell her she looks average or okay or meh. This apparently short-circuits her brain because she has spent centuries expecting people to be either terrified or falsely polite. She has no script for dealing with someone who just shrugs and gives her a completely mediocre review. While she is standing there processing this unexpected response, you run. You run as fast as you possibly can because her confusion will not last long. Others have reported success with distracting her by asking her questions in return. Do I look pretty to you? Seems to confuse her. Asking her to wait while you call someone on your phone has also worked. Throwing objects at her, particularly small things like candy or coins, can buy you precious seconds to escape. The key is to disrupt her routine. She has been asking the same question and giving the same responses for over 1,000 years. Anything that breaks that pattern gives you a chance to get away. Modern encounters with Kuchisake-Onna are still reported throughout Japan, and the descriptions are remarkably consistent. A woman in a mask approaches at night, asks if she is pretty, removes the mask to reveal the mutilated mouth, asks again. The locations vary, but the behavior is always the same. What makes her particularly dangerous in modern times is that wearing masks has become completely normal in Japanese society. She can blend in perfectly among crowds of masked people, making it almost impossible to identify her until it is too late. The most disturbing aspect of Kuchisake-Onna is not just her appearance or her methods of killing. It is the psychology behind her curse. She represents the ultimate consequences of vanity, infidelity, and the terrible things people do to each other in the name of honor and revenge. She is a reminder that some wounds never heal, some anger never dies, and some questions should never be asked. Survival chance: 10% if you answer her questions directly, 50% if you are brutally honest and a little rude, or if you can think quickly enough to confuse her long enough to run. But remember, even if you escape her once, she might remember your face, and she has all the time in the world to find you again. Do you know what happens if you say Bloody Mary 3 times into a mirror at 3 in the morning? Your mother will yell at you to shut up and go to bed, and honestly, that might save your life. Still, that legend has been around for many years, and unlike most childhood dares, this one has roots that go much deeper and darker than you might think. You see, Bloody Mary is not just one of the most famous urban legends in Western folklore. She represents something much more ancient and terrifying: the idea that mirrors are not just reflections, but doorways. Bloody Mary is the story of a vengeful ghost who appears in mirrors when you summon her, but the ritual itself taps into fears that humans have had about mirrors for thousands of years. Ancient civilizations believed that mirrors could trap souls, that they were windows to other worlds, that looking into them at the wrong time or in the wrong way could bring terrible consequences. The ritual everyone knows is deceptively simple. You go into a bathroom, turn off all the lights, light a single candle, look into the mirror, and say Bloody Mary 3 times. Then you wait to see what appears in the reflection behind you. But here is what most people do not understand. The ritual works because of what you bring to it: your fear, your expectation, your willingness to believe that something might actually happen. And in that dark room, with your mind primed for terror, your eyes straining to see in the candlelight, your brain starts to create things that might not be there. Or maybe they are there, and that is what makes it truly terrifying. No one is completely sure who Bloody Mary really was, and that uncertainty is part of what makes her so frightening. She could be anyone, which means she could be everyone. The most common stories say she was Mary Worth, a woman accused of being a witch in colonial America. According to this version, she was dragged from her home by an angry mob, tortured until she confessed a crime she never committed, and then burned alive while screaming her innocence. Others say she was a woman who was betrayed by her lover, murdered by her husband, or killed by jealous rivals. Some versions claim she was a woman who died in front of a mirror, either by suicide or murder, and her soul became trapped in the reflection. But the most historically interesting possibility is that Bloody Mary is actually Queen Mary I of England, also known as Bloody Mary for her enthusiastic persecution of Protestants. She burned hundreds of people alive during her 5-year reign, earning her nickname through the sheer volume of her brutality. She died childless, bitter, and convinced that God had abandoned her, which certainly seems like the kind of unfinished business that could create a vengeful ghost. The truth is, it probably does not matter who she was originally, because over the centuries, Bloody Mary has become something bigger than any individual woman. She has become a collective representation of female rage, of women who died angry and unfairly, of all the injustices that were never resolved. Either way, she died furious and apparently thought, "Why rest in peace when I can haunt every middle school bathroom and slumber party for the rest of eternity?" When people perform the Bloody Mary ritual and actually see something, the experiences are remarkably consistent across cultures and generations. She appears as a woman in a mirror, sometimes young, sometimes old, usually pale with long dark hair and eyes that are either completely black or glowing red. Sometimes she looks exactly like she did in life. Sometimes she appears as she did when she died, showing the wounds or burns that killed her. The manifestations vary in intensity. Sometimes she just appears in the mirror, staring at you with those horrible eyes, and then vanishes. Sometimes she reaches out as if trying to break through the glass. In the worst cases, she actually emerges from a mirror, and that is when things get really dangerous. She might scratch your face with supernatural claws, leaving marks that never fully heal. She might blind you, either temporarily or permanently, because she does not want you to see anything ever again. She might drive you insane with visions of your own death or the deaths of people you love. Some people who encounter her report being followed by bad luck, accidents, and misfortune for years afterward. But the most terrifying possibility is that she drags you straight into the mirror with her. People who witness this say the victim is pulled forward into the glass as if it were liquid, disappearing completely. And no one really knows where she takes them, because no one who goes into the mirror ever comes back to tell the story. Some paranormal researchers believe that mirrors in bathrooms are particularly dangerous because bathrooms are liminal spaces, places of transition where we are vulnerable. We are alone, often undressed, performing private activities. We are at our most human and defensible. If something is going to attack us, bathrooms are where we are least prepared to fight back. Modern technology has not made Bloody Mary any less dangerous. In fact, some people report that she can appear in any reflective surface, including phone screens, computer monitors, and television screens. There are accounts of people accidentally summoning her by saying her name while looking at their phone cameras in dark rooms. The most disturbing aspect of the Bloody Mary legend is how it has evolved with each generation. She adapts to new fears, new technologies, new ways of being vulnerable. She is not stuck in the past like many other supernatural entities. She grows stronger with each person who tries the ritual, each person who spreads her story, each person who believes in her even a little bit. Today, her story is mostly known as a sleepover dare, a rite of passage for children testing their courage. But honestly, I am still too scared to try it, and I have researched some of the most terrifying entities in human history. There is something about Bloody Mary that feels different, more immediate, more personal than other supernatural threats. Maybe it is because mirrors are so common in our daily lives. Maybe it is because the ritual is so simple that anyone can do it accidentally. Or maybe it is because, unlike other entities that hunt in specific locations or under specific circumstances, Bloody Mary can be summoned anywhere there's a mirror and someone foolish enough to call her name. Survival chance: 15% if you perform the ritual properly and she actually appears. Your chances improve significantly if you break the mirror immediately, run from a room, or never look back. but they drop to 0% if you brought her up while drunk, because it is not that kind of Bloody Mary. And she does not appreciate the confusion. The best survival strategy is simple. Do not call her name in front of mirrors, especially not at 3 in the morning, and definitely not alone in the dark. Some doors should never be opened, and some names should never be spoken. Imagine a smelly bald guy in full black robes sneaking into your room at night, just to drool all over your face like a dog and stick his wet tongue in your ear. That is Kurobōzu, which literally means black monk, and unfortunately, he is not here to bless your dreams or offer spiritual guidance. He is here to make you sick in the most disgusting way possible. Kurobōzu represents one of Japan's most disturbing categories of yokai, the corrupted holy man. In a culture that deeply respects Buddhist monks, the idea of a monk who has become something twisted and predatory is particularly horrifying. It violates everything monks are supposed to represent: purity, self-control, and protection of the innocent. According to reports going back hundreds of years, Kurobōzu appears as a dark, shadowy figure resembling a Buddhist monk, but something is fundamentally wrong with him. He wears traditional black robes and his head is shaved like a monk, but that is where the resemblance to anything holy ends. No one's gotten a clear look at him, and that might be for the best. His overall shape is human, but the details are all wrong. His hands seem too large, too grasping, with fingers that are either too long or too short. His face is described as bestial, more animal than human, with features that shift and blur when you try to focus on them. But the most disturbing thing about Kurobōzu is his tongue. Every person who has encountered him mentions the tongue. It is impossibly long, unnaturally thick, and constantly wet with some kind of fluid that is definitely not saliva. The tongue seems to have a mind of its own, moving independently, exploring and probing like it is searching for something. The first sign that Kurobōzu is in your house is the smell. People say he reeks like rotten fish mixed with spoiled garbage, like someone that has been dead for weeks in hot weather. The smell is so intense it makes people vomit immediately, even before they see him. So if your bedroom ever starts smelling like an abandoned fish market, he is probably already in the house, and it is probably too late. His hunting routine is both simple and absolutely revolting. He waits until everyone is asleep, then enters through methods no one understands. Doors remain locked, windows stay closed, but somehow he gets in. Some say he seeps through walls like smoke, others that he emerges from shadows or crawls out of dark corners. Once inside, he moves with supernatural silence despite his size and heavy robes. He seems to know exactly where everyone is sleeping, as if he can sense their dreams or breathing. He chooses victims seemingly at random, though some reports suggest he prefers people who are already sick or stressed. He approaches the bed slowly, then leans over the sleeping person and begins his disgusting ritual. First, he sucks the breath right out of their mouth. Not just air, but something more essential, leaving victims feeling weak and drained for days. People describe it as feeling like someone is pulling their life force directly out of their lungs. But that is just the beginning. While stealing their breath, he extends that horrible tongue and begins to explore. Sometimes he licks their face, leaving a trail of something that smells like decay and makes their skin burn. Sometimes he puts his tongue in their ears, probing deep inside like he is trying to reach their brain. The most disturbing reports describe him inserting his tongue into their mouth while they sleep, as if trying to taste their dreams or steal their voice. People wake up with the taste of something rotten that lasts for days, no matter how much they brush their teeth. While Kurobōzu does not leave physical marks, he leaves a trail of sickness. People who get repeated visits develop mysterious illnesses doctors cannot diagnose. They become weak, tired, prone to infections. Their immune systems gradually collapse, as if something is slowly draining their vitality, which makes perfect sense, considering they've been repeatedly molested by a supernatural monk who apparently has the worst oral hygiene in the history of the afterlife. Here is what makes Kurobōzu particularly insidious. Most victims do not remember the encounters clearly. They wake up feeling sick and violated, with strange tastes and unexplained fatigue, but dismiss it as nightmares or stress. Only when the pattern repeats night after night do they realize something supernatural is happening. Modern encounters are still reported throughout Japan, particularly in older houses and traditional neighborhoods. The descriptions remain consistent. The smell, the dark robes, the invasive tongue, the gradual sickness that follows. What makes him particularly terrifying in modern times is that he's adapted to contemporary living. People report encounters in apartment buildings, hotels, even hospital rooms. Anywhere people sleep, Kurobōzu can apparently reach them. There are very few effective defenses against Kurobōzu. Most yokai have specific weaknesses, but Kurobōzu seems remarkably persistent. Some report that strong religious symbols, particularly Buddhist protective prayers, can keep him away temporarily. Others say keeping lights on or playing religious music helps. But the most effective protection seems to be simply not sleeping alone. Kurobōzu prefers victims who are isolated and vulnerable. He rarely attacks people sharing a bed or sleeping with others nearby. The psychological impact extends far beyond the physical violations. Victims report feeling fundamentally unclean, as if contaminated by something that cannot be washed away. Many develop severe insomnia, afraid to fall asleep because they know he might return. Some become obsessive about oral hygiene, brushing their teeth dozens of times daily, trying to get rid of the taste he leaves behind. Survival chance, 100% technically speaking, because Kurobōzu does not usually kill his victims outright. But you will never sleep well again knowing that a dirty, perverted monk might be sneaking into your room to lick your face and stick his tongue in your ear. The best defense is knowledge and preparation. Keep your living space clean, maintain good spiritual hygiene, and never sleep alone if you suspect you might be targeted. And if you wake up with the taste of rotten fish in your mouth and the feeling that someone has been breathing on you all night, it might be time to find a new place to sleep. Have you ever been minding your own business at night and suddenly gotten challenged to a death match by a middle-aged woman doing a folk dance? If not, then you have never been to Serbia after dark, and frankly, you might want to keep it that way. Welcome to the Serbian dancing lady, one of the most bizarre and terrifying urban legends of the 21st century, and proof that the internet age can create monsters just as frightening as anything from ancient folklore. This is not a creature from centuries past. This is a modern nightmare, born in our connected world, spreading through social media faster than any virus. The Serbian dancing lady legend began in 2019 with a single incident outside a hospital in Zvezdara, a district of Belgrade, Serbia. A woman was reportedly seen dancing alone in the street late at night, moving in a way that witnesses described as deeply unsettling. She was performing what appeared to be a distorted version of the traditional Serbian folk dance called kolo, but her movements were wrong, too sharp, too fast, too aggressive. It was like watching someone who had learned the dance by watching broken video footage, getting all the steps right, but missing the soul entirely. Initial witnesses approached her because they were concerned. A middle-aged woman dancing alone in the street after midnight seemed like someone who might need help. Maybe she was drunk, maybe having a mental health crisis, maybe just celebrating something privately. But when people got close enough to speak to her, she did not respond. She did not acknowledge their presence at all. She just kept dancing, staring straight ahead with an expression witnesses described as completely blank, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. And then, without warning, she reached into her clothing and pulled out a knife. What happened next varies depending on who is telling the story, but all versions agree on the basic facts. She began chasing the people who had approached her, moving with impossible speed while still maintaining elements of the dance. She was not just running. She was dancing toward them, incorporating spins and traditional kolo steps into her pursuit. Witnesses reported that she moved faster than any human should be able to move, especially a middle-aged woman in traditional folk dress. She covered ground like she was floating, her feet barely touching the pavement as she whirled and spun with the knife gleaming in the streetlights. The people she chased managed to escape, but not before getting a good look at her face. They said her expression never changed. Even while pursuing them with a weapon, she maintained the same blank, focused look, as if chasing people with a knife was just another part of her dance routine. When police arrived to investigate, there was no sign of her. No footprints, no witnesses, no security camera footage, nothing. It was as if she had simply vanished into the night. But that was just the beginning. Since that initial incident, the Serbian dancing lady has become something much larger. Reports of similar sightings have spread throughout the Balkans and beyond, always following the same pattern. A woman in traditional dress, dancing alone at night, pulling out a weapon when approached, chasing people with supernatural speed. People speculate about who she is and why she dances. Some say she is the ghost of a woman who died during the Yugoslav wars, forever performing traditional dances because it is the only thing connecting her to her lost life. Others believe she is a living person who has suffered some psychological break, compelled to dance by trauma or mental illness. But the most disturbing theory is that she is something entirely new, a creature created by our modern world of viral videos and social media fame. Maybe she started as a real person doing something strange, but the attention and fear she generated transformed her into something supernatural. Maybe she feeds on the fear and confusion she creates, growing stronger with each new report. If you ask me, it is probably just someone's grandmother who got tired of being ignored and decided to make people pay attention to Serbian folk traditions through the universal language of knife-based terror. But honestly, that might be even scarier than a supernatural explanation. Since 2019, the dancing lady has become a phenomenon that transcends her original location. There are reports from across Europe and North America. Anywhere there are Serbian communities or people familiar with the story, the descriptions remain remarkably consistent. Traditional folk dress, empty expression, impossible speed, and always that knife. What makes her particularly unsettling is how she represents the collision between old and new fears. Traditional folk dances are supposed to be celebrations of culture and community, expressions of joy and identity. But she has taken something beautiful and communal and turned it into something solitary and threatening. When you encounter her, she is always wearing traditional Serbian folk costume, sometimes clean and pristine, sometimes stained with what appears to be blood. Her face is rarely shown clearly, usually hidden by her hair or shadows, but witnesses describe the same blank expression, the same empty eyes looking at something beyond the physical world. Her intentions remain completely unknown, and that uncertainty is part of what makes her so frightening. Why does she dance? What is she celebrating or mourning? What does she want from the people she encounters? Is she trying to communicate something? Or is the dancing just a compulsion she cannot control? But here is what everyone agrees on. If you show up during her performance, you might end up in a knife fight instead of a cultural exchange. She does not seem interested in teaching anyone the steps. She views interruption of her dance as a threat that must be eliminated. The Serbian dancing lady represents something new in supernatural encounters, a legend born online, spread through social media, continuing to evolve with each new report. She is not constrained by ancient traditions. She could be whatever the current moment needs her to be, adapting to new fears and technologies. Modern encounters are often recorded on phones or security cameras, but the footage is always unclear, always just ambiguous enough to leave room for doubt. Is it really her or someone copying? Is she supernatural or just very dedicated to her craft? The uncertainty is part of her power. Survival chance, 70%, assuming you can run faster than a middle-aged woman in traditional dress. But those odds drop significantly if you underestimate her speed or get curious enough to try filming her for social media. You know what beats the Serbian dancing lady? Not engaging with street performers who are armed, no matter how culturally significant their routine might be. Sometimes the best response to art is to appreciate it from a very safe distance. During the day, she appears to be just your average woman going about her normal life, working, shopping, socializing, completely indistinguishable from any other person you might meet. But at night, when darkness falls and she falls asleep, her head decides it has places to go and people to see. So while her body rests peacefully in bed, her neck quietly detaches itself from the group project and goes exploring on its own. Welcome to the world of Rokurokubi, one of Japan's most bizarre and unsettling yokai, and a perfect example of how supernatural curses can turn the most basic human functions into something absolutely terrifying. This is not just about a woman with a stretchy neck. This is about the violation of bodily autonomy, the loss of control over your own physical form, and the horror of discovering that your body might be doing things without your knowledge or consent. The name Rokurokubi literally means pulley neck, which might sound like a chiropractic condition you could solve with a good massage, but in reality, It describes a supernatural punishment that is both physically impossible and psychologically devastating. And of course, because this is Japanese folklore where women are disproportionately targeted for supernatural punishment, it only affects women. The curse of becoming a Rokurokubi can be triggered by various sins or misfortunes, and the reasons reveal a lot about the social expectations placed on women in traditional Japanese society. Sometimes it happens because a woman was unfaithful to her husband, seeking love or physical satisfaction outside her marriage. Sometimes it happens because she was a victim of infidelity, as if being betrayed by her husband was somehow her fault and deserved supernatural punishment. Other versions say it could be caused by lying, by being too vain, by failing properly honor her ancestors, or by breaking religious taboos. Basically, any behavior that violated the strict social codes governing women's conduct could potentially result in this curse. The message was clear. Step out of line, and your body will literally separate itself from your control. But here is what makes Rokurokubi particularly cruel as a curse. Many of the women who become afflicted have no memory of their nightly transformations. They go to sleep normally, and while they are unconscious, their neck extends like a telescoping rod, allowing their head to roam freely while their body remains in bed. The head, now operating independently, gets busy with activities that the conscious mind would never approve of. Sometimes it hunts small animals, moving through the night like a predatory snake with human features. Sometimes it drinks lamp oil with a grotesquely long tongue that emerges from the mouth, consuming the fuel that people need for light and warmth. Sometimes it sneaks up on sleeping people just for fun of it, hovering over their beds like a disembodied face, watching them dream, breathing on them, occasionally licking them or whispering things they will not remember in the morning. The women who experience this wake up tired and confused, blaming their exhaustion on bad dreams or stress. They have no idea that their head has been conducting a separate life during the night, engaging in behaviors that would horrify their waking mind. They might notice strange taste in their mouth, unexplained scratches on their neck, or oil stains on their nightclothes, but they dismiss these as coincidences. It is only when someone else witnesses the transformation that the truth becomes undeniable. Imagine being married to someone for years, sleeping next to them every night, and then one evening you wake up to see their head floating 6 feet above their body, connected by an impossibly long neck, staring down at you with eyes that are familiar, but somehow empty of recognition. The psychological impact on both the victim and their family is devastating. The woman realizes that her body has been betraying her, acting without her knowledge or consent. Her loved ones realize that the person they thought they knew has been literally coming apart at night, becoming something inhuman and unpredictable. But not all Rokurokubi are unaware of their condition. Some women are fully conscious during their transformations, and their experiences vary dramatically. Some find the ability liberating, enjoying the freedom to explore without physical limitations, to satisfy curiosities that social constraints would normally prevent them from pursuing. These aware Rokurokubi often develop a kind of double life. During the day, they maintain their normal social roles, playing a part of the dutiful wife, mother, or daughter. At night, they become something else entirely, using their supernatural ability to spy on neighbors, explore forbidden places, or simply experience the world from a completely different perspective. In older stories, this was not even necessarily seen as monstrous behavior. It was just a soul wandering the night, disguised as a floating head, satisfying its curiosity about the world. The horror came not from the ability itself, but from the deception involved in hiding it from family and community. Some stories describe Rokurokubi who use their ability for benevolent purposes, checking on elderly neighbors, searching for lost children, or keeping watch over their communities during dangerous times. The stretching neck becomes a tool for protection rather than predation. But the more sinister versions describe Rokurokubi who develop predatory behaviors, using their ability to spy on people in private moments, to steal food or valuables, or to terrorize those who have offended them. The lack of physical limitations makes them incredibly difficult to catch or confront. Modern interpretations of Rokurokubi often focus on themes of female autonomy and the fear of women who cannot be controlled or contained. The image of a woman whose head can attach and roam freely represents anxieties about female independence, sexuality, and the possibility that women might have secret lives that men cannot monitor or restrict. The curse also represents fears about the unknowable aspects of the people closest to us. How well do we really know our spouses, our family members, our friends? What might they be doing when we are not watching? The Rokurokubi embodies a terrifying possibility that the hashtag horror legend script spoken content. All right, folks, that finishes our journey through the darkest corners of human folklore. We have traveled from the misty riverbanks of Mexico, where La Llorona still searches for her children, to the rural fields of Japan, where Tenome hunts by scent with eyes that should not exist. We have walked the dark alleys where Kuchisake-Onna asks her fatal question, stood before mirrors where Bloody Mary waits to be summoned, and witnessed the twisted dance of Serbia's most notorious performer. But before you close this video and try to forget everything you just heard, I need you to understand something important. These are not just stories I pulled from dusty old books or obscure internet forums. These are entities that have been encountered by real people, documented by serious researchers, and reported consistently across cultures and centuries. Every single one of these creatures represents something fundamental about human fear. La Llorona embodies our fear of maternal madness and the consequences of our worst decisions. Tenome represents a horror of injustice and revenge that has gone beyond reason. Kuchisake-Onna is our anxiety about beauty, vanity, and the terrible things people do for love and honor. And here is what should really keep you awake tonight. The encounters are not stopping. People are still reporting sightings, still having experiences, still disappearing under circumstances that conventional explanations cannot account for. La Llorona is spotted near rivers in Texas and California. Kuchisake-Onna appears in the neon-lit streets of modern Japanese cities. The Serbian dancing lady spreads through social media like a virus, creating new encounters wherever her story is shared. In our connected, documented, surveilled modern world, these ancient terrors are adapting, evolving, finding new ways to reach us. They're using our technology against us, appearing in phone screens and security cameras, spreading through the same networks we use to stay connected. So now go outside and touch some grass. Feel the real world under your feet, but also make sure to avoid mirrors after dark. Do not say certain names 3 times while looking at your reflection. Do not investigate strange sounds by rivers at night. Do not approach people dancing alone in empty streets. And whatever you do, if someone asks if you think they are pretty, choose your words very, very carefully. Because here's the thing I have been building up to throughout this entire video. Now that you know about them, they know about you too. Knowledge is not neutral when it comes to supernatural entities. Learning their names, understanding their methods, visualizing their appearances, these are not passive activities. In many traditions, knowing about a supernatural creature creates a connection between you and them. You become visible to them in a way that you were not before. Before tonight, you were just another anonymous person going about your daily life. But now you have spent time thinking about these entities, learning their stories, imagining what it would be like to encounter them. You have opened a door in your mind, and doors, once opened, are very difficult to close completely. Many people who research these entities report changes afterward. Strange dreams, unexplained sounds, the feeling of being watched. Some of this might be psychological, but some of it might be something more, something that science has not yet learned to measure. So pay attention to changes in the coming days. Notice if your dreams become more vivid. Be aware if you start hearing sounds without obvious sources. Trust your instincts if you feel watched when alone. Keep lights on when you sleep. Avoid walking alone in isolated places, especially near water. Be extra careful around mirrors and dark alleys. And if strange experiences become frequent or intense, reach out to someone who understands these matters. You do not have to face this alone. But for most of you, this knowledge will remain just that, knowledge. The key is not to feed the connection through obsession. Do not spend hours researching these creatures online. Do not seek out more stories, or try to encounter them yourself. Do not perform any rituals or summoning procedures. Treat what you learned tonight like a vaccination, controlled exposure that gives you immunity rather than infection. You now know enough to recognize danger, but not so much that you become a target yourself. Remember that you are not helpless. Humans have been dealing with these entities for thousands of years. Faith, community, laughter, mundane activities. The simple act of living a full and positive life. These are all forms of armor against supernatural threats. Do not let fear control your life, but do not let skepticism make you careless either. The world is stranger and more dangerous than most people realize, but is also more full of light and goodness than the darkness would have you believe. Sweet dreams, and may whatever watches you tonight find you too boring to bother with. If you survive this journey into darkness, hit subscribe. There are far worse things waiting to be uncovered. The Abyss has many more secrets to share with those brave enough to look.